What's up, everybody? Thomas Claxton here, and you guys are tuned in to the Sitting In with Thomas Claxton podcast. This is your stop for the behind-the-scenes dive straight into the heart of the music industry. Here, I interview some of the world's best in multiple fields, ranging from performers to producers and engineers, manufacturer CEOs, technologists, entrepreneurs, representative firms, technicians, attorneys, CPAs, and much more to give you guys an insider's perspective. The advice, the road stories, and the insider's point of view on an industry and where its future lies. It's all right here. And remember, if you guys like what you see, like, share, and subscribe. You guys sit back and enjoy. Thanks a lot.
Ignition sequence start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
How you been, man? I hadn't seen you since January, and a lot of shit's changed, hasn't it?
Yeah, that was you want to get started? Are we on? We're recording?
Yeah. I record the whole thing. I'll go through and edit stuff, and I'll let you see it and everything like that before I put anything out.
Yeah, I mean, January started off great. I had pre-NAMM, I had about 8 shows, and then when the NAMM Jam showed up, and all through February, I was playing 3 or 4 nights a week and doing sessions in Los Angeles studios. It seemed like that was coming back a little bit with United and East West, a little bit over at A&M, which is called Henson.
Sure.
And it really seemed like in a sense, 2020, a real good vision. Real good optimism, and it changed quickly. And I'm trying to stay, I guess, in a sense, in that work ethic here at home. Play a lot of drums, and keep my attitude, PMA, positive mental attitude up, and keep planning for the future. I know it's coming. It's going to be clean. What I'm excited about is really when this shit goes through the fan, now that it hit it,
right,
there's going to be a lot of creativity to pull from. We're going to be able to create new music, new art, new poems, and I think that we have something to say now, and unfortunately it's the pain that is the fodder, the food for all that, but we're having some blues. And out of that, we're going to get some good art and music. So as far as the live thing, it's hard to think how it's going to work out. But once I get on stage again, I'm going to blow up. I really am.
Oh, yeah, dude. That's the same vibe I'm getting. And I tell you, I've watched a lot of performers, and different people in different levels of the industry. They're having to change things up quite a bit, so they're having to come up with new ways. I was talking with Scott Page the other day, and how Scott is, man. He's always innovating and thinking of stuff, and coming up with different ideas. And I know you're a lot the same way. That's why I relate to you guys a lot, because it's just, we're not going to sit around. We're not going to be lazy. We're going to keep on moving. We're going to think of new stuff. We're going to keep being creative and putting out these awesome projects. I mean, because that's what people expect. And you can sit around and do nothing, and it'll pass you by. Or you can do something.
Our first experiences with their greatest, records and even seeing stuff on TV or going to see a movie, we never really were in the same room with Led Zeppelin, but we got to see Song Remains the Same.
That's right.
We never were in the same room with the Beatles, but we listened to Sgt. Pepper's over and over into the night.
Great
so
stuff.
I think we're going back to that. We're not having a chance to get in the same room with our favorite bands, but we're separated by a screen, not so different than when we grew up. that still inspired us to get into it. We put on a record or we put on a DVD, and nowadays, it's or a VHS back then, now we can just go online and watch anything you want.
That's right.
But you had a chance to be inspired by these great movies or films or, a record or a cassette or an 8-track. And we were distant from the real art, but we still were able to pull from it. And I think it's kind of feeling that way again, where the screen is separating us, and maybe a live show won't be a room full of people, but a stream, or maybe people will be in their car in the parking lot while there's a big screen out in the audience. In the parking lot for people to enjoy.
Like the old drive-in movie theaters, man.
You never know what it's going to turn into, but there was that sense that we were disconnected as a kid. We didn't really have a chance to touch our favorite musicians. And it's going back to that in a sense. And it hurts because my experience as a drummer, I open my eyes, I see people moving their bodies.
Sure. That
turns me on. And I'm here alone in a room or with a camera looking at me. There's that separation, but they're still reaching out to people. And I'm doing drum circles now. Right now it's for the MS community. We're doing the Beat MS drum circle. We did one last Saturday. We're doing one this Saturday. And it was cool because on the webinar, I got to see 60 different little screens and people joining in. And I felt like I was doing a live concert for a moment.
Sure.
I was leading a drum circle. But, the real, I have a 10-year-old son. To see it through his eyes is really a painful situation because he would come home with dirty jeans and all sweaty, and he was tackling his friends. And there's something social about being together. And I can really feel his pain that he's not getting that for the last 75 days. And you got to wonder how it's affecting everybody. But on a positive note, there's, like I said, there's something to be going into our art supply, and our new art department will be coming out strong, and it'll be creative, and there'll be a need for that. But yeah, I'm happy to play drums here. And that much hasn't changed. I've got my romance with my drumsticks, and it's a love affair, and I still have that. And I feel for people that don't have that.
That's why you're successful, Stephen. I mean, it's not just a thing that you got into, for fame and anything like that. You really have a passion for what you do, and I think deep down at the core, that's what some musicians, in my opinion, or some performers, I'll say, some of them lack. Some have it and some don't. But you can always tell which ones are going to go at the distance in this business. You know what I'm saying? You get kind of, or at least the ones who have the potential to, should I say, because it's their life, man. It's not just a hobby. It's not just something they did to pick up the chicks, or the guys if they're girls. I mean, it's really the passion. It's like it runs through the blood, man. You can't even help it.
Yeah, to get paid and get laid was a surprise. That was, I didn't know that was even.
What you know about that, man?
Part of the game. The game to me was to be a better drummer,
Yeah.
Just to be a better player and to see people react, and to see people tap their foot or shake their butt.
Sure.
And so that's really the turn on for me. And 100 years ago, a musician picked up a piano. 50 years ago, a guitar. Now that same musician might be working on an iPad. You never know, but it's a creative person still wanting to make music and get people to react. And, it's my daily routine. I'm trying to keep it the same, play drums, exercise, eat right, play with the kid, read a book, and try to keep that daily schedule up. We're very fortunate in Los Angeles to have great weather. And
same here.
Yeah, it's also tempting to go outside and you miss out on socializing because you want to be distant from people they want you to be, and you have to be. And,
I tell you, man, it's you're the first guy that I've interviewed for this podcast since NAMM. So you're the first one that's actually giving a current, You know, because it's funny to me to go back and listen to some of the ones that I interviewed at NAMM, because nobody saw any of this stuff coming. You know, we were all sitting around, we were just all chilling, no big deal. People from other countries walking up, giving you a hug and a handshake. You know, and I told somebody that recently. They were like, man, you know, you could get sick. And I'm like, do you have any idea where I was in January? I was at the largest music merchants convention in the world, shaking hands and hugging on people, you know, from all over the place, China, Italy, it didn't matter, you know. So the chances of it back then were, you know, and we just had no idea. Luckily, I didn't get sick or anything like that. But I know some people who kept telling me, you know, they weren't feeling too hot, and, you know, they didn't know what it was they had. It didn't feel the same as anything. I was like, oh boy. And you look back on it then. And also I remember I was going to the NAMM breakfasts almost every morning, and I was listening to Joe Lamont, and you know, and Joe's a dear friend, great guy, you know, but the perspective back then was very different, because Joe was sitting there and he was saying, you know, how the industry seemed to be going full circle. And, you know, it started out with live performances way long ago, and you know, and people just played, and there was no such thing as recording and all this kind of stuff. And now the live performances are coming back, and they're coming back strong, and then all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow.
And, you know, nothing to do with economics or opening up the country. But I got a feel for someone like Angus Young, who lived his life on stage. He can live forever that way.
That's right.
The poor guy at home, that's what's going to make him crazy and sick, right? Because he doesn't have a chance to get on stage. That's what's going to age you, is not working. You know, looking around, sitting in your bed and reading a book, that's how you go old. Getting on stage and getting home at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and having to get up the next morning and get back to life. That's what keeps you young, you know. And it's a tragedy, because I would get home at 2 in the morning and couldn't fall asleep till 3 a.m. because I'm all hyped up, and then 4 hours later up with the kid, you know, making breakfast and thinking I need more sleep. Now, you know, how much more sleep can one man have? I mean, you know, enough is enough. I want to get back at it, you know. And it's funny, because the music business, you know, it's hard to put those words together, because, you know, it's the art business, the poetry business, you know, the painting business, the music business. They're separate, you know. And nowadays, like you were talking to Scott Page, you got to figure out how these musicians are going to make a living, and how they're going to use their fantastic, you know, how they express their innerness and their feeling of what's going on, their homegrown life. They put that out, and that's what people are interested in. I love hearing a musician from Miami. He's going to sound different than a musician from Seattle. You grew up different. Yeah, you have a different environment. And now a lot of people's environments are kind of the same. We're all indoors. Yeah. You know, and so what's that going to do to the sound and the music? We're not sure yet, you know, because I grew up in Venice and LA. You had people doing drum circles, half naked.
Well, I'll tell you this, man, you know, to kind of follow up with that, we are human beings, and we have to interact. I mean, you know, and I get it, you know, we got to do what we got to do with this thing here, and I totally understand. But that's why I keep telling people, don't worry, because whether this thing lasts forever or whether it doesn't, we're going to find a way to adapt to it. And we're going to go right back eventually to being able to, you know, to interact with one another physically and things like that, you know, because that's in our nature. You can't take that away forever. You can take it away for this long, but, you know, eventually in the grand scheme of things, it's going to go back. And I think what you're saying there with how everything, you know, we're all indoors and we're all kind of on the same page now. It's very true. I mean, you know, it's really affecting a lot of things. And I can say that, you know, personally, because of the fact that, I mean, dude, I grew up in Southeast Georgia. I'm still here. You know, things out here. And even though I got a lot of friends like yourself out in Los Angeles, love you guys to death. But the way we do things out here in the Southeast is very different than the West Coast. So that's why I travel, and that's why I go to New York and LA and all these places, because it's a way, it's like a melting pot of performers, you know, and you get to see how people do things differently. And it's very interesting, like you're saying, to see how things are all kind of merging right now as people are all in very similar scenarios.
Absolutely. And we're all using this technology that maybe 3 months ago we weren't aware of, like this interview. We weren't going to, you know, let's get on the Zoom and do an interview. So the technology is rising to the top quickly, and
for sure,
it's changing, and it's morphing into what people need. And young people are now teaching old people, and old people are more aware of the technology and how to use it.
Yeah.
And, you know, as a drummer in the 70s, 80s, I love new wave music, but a lot of it was a drum machine.
Yeah.
And I had no connection to that. So I had to search out new wave bands that had real drummers, like the Cars, B-52s, Missing Persons, even Peter Gabriel, you know, bands that were using real drummers in a new wave sonic audio type of environment. And
I love Peter Gabriel, man. That's good stuff.
And that's kind of what's happening now is, you know, people that may have shunned technology and just want to have an organic experience are now embracing it, because that's what we have to do. And, you know, this homegrown feeling of Los Angeles sounds different than New York. A drummer from New York is surrounded by traffic and lights and people everywhere. A drummer from LA has got elbow room, and he's got Mexico next door and Latin rhythms. But nowadays, you know, all that's kind of washed out. It's like what you listen to and what you bring to your own world is up to you. It's not the environment that's around you. It's you're making your own environment and how to keep it happy and healthy. Derek Day, who plays with Think, he's 26. You know, I'm 52. And Scott Page is in his 60s, but we're all working on the same technology, working on the same ideas together, and we're not in the same room, you know, but we're all kind of joining forces. And, you know, now I went for a beautiful walk, and as you know, the environment is changing. There's more birds and animals.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's only 75 days of a lockdown, you know, so the world changes quickly, and the animals are becoming more aware of where they can spread their wings, and they have more elbow room, and the oceans are clearing, the air is clearing. This is only 75 days.
Dude, I got to tell you, man, I got to tell you, I've always thought that was one of the biggest mistakes that human beings make, is so many human beings believe that we're in charge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
To a degree, I kind of get where they're coming from, but then to a large degree, I don't. Yeah. Because at the snap of a finger, human beings are minuscule.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know, we are no better than any other living creatures or anything like that on this planet, you know, when it comes to that kind of stuff. And, you know, and not to get philosophical or anything like that, but I've always believed that, you know, one day people are going to find out just how powerful they really are, you know. And I've always looked at it because I've always been interested in outer space and stuff like that. And, you know, and I'm like, you know, here I'm 6'3.5".
Yeah.
Pretty big guy, you know, over 200 pounds. You go up far enough and I'm a speck of dirt. I mean, and that's it. You know, and I think that's how you got to look at things, all in perspective. You know, it takes everything to kind of make it all turn, and we're not as big as we think we are sometimes, man. It's this right here is proving it. And no matter what your view of it is, I mean, you know, but that's what's so funny. I've also found it kind of annoying too that some people are kind of criticized for questioning.
Yeah, of course.
That's human nature. We're supposed to question things. You know,
I had a conversation with my kid. He said technology is moving too quick. And I said, look, when they invent steel, if we didn't invent it on this part of the earth, another person would have invented it somewhere else. You can't stop the mind from thinking.
That's right.
And Einstein said, don't be fearful of death. Unfortunately, we know we're going to die. Animals don't know that. They can live, they're in fear because they don't want to be either a predator or, you know, or they're either meat or they're chasing meat.
That's right.
But he knows we're going to go. So you have to get that out of your system and say, live in the moment. Because there is no yesterday, there is no tomorrow, there's right now, and we have to be in that moment. And so when you invent the wheel, you're not thinking what it might do, and that's the conversation with Einstein. He knew when he invented and split the atom, it could do damage, but then again, if he didn't do it and teach us, someone else would have.
That's right. Somebody else would have figured it out, somebody else would have come along. I mean, that's why I've never believed in silencing people and things like that. I told somebody the other day, and I know I'm not the only person to ever say this, but I'm just saying this was in the conversation. Where I told him, I was like, at one point, 95% or more of the planet believed the Earth was flat, and then all of a sudden, one dude came along, and one dude said, "No, I'm pretty sure that it's round." And I guarantee you a huge part of the population looked at that guy and said, dude, why don't you just shut up? And why don't you just, keep to yourself and stop disrupting our way of thinking? We've got it this way, and that's the way we've always believed, so just get lost, go to hell.
Yeah.
It turns out, and a lot of people would have called that guy back in the day, if that term existed, would have been like a conspiracy theorist. Mm-hmm. Turns out that dude was right. And a lot of things that people look at as conspiracies back in the day have actually proven themselves to be quite true. Not everything. Some of it's crazy and off the cuff, and just like human beings, there's people that are all there and there's people that are not. So I mean, same way, but regardless, I really do hope this thing it'll run its course, it'll run its cycle, because I tell you what, man, last January I was on stage for at least one time with Scott Page, Stephen Perkins, Will Champlin, and
there's more of that to come. And
man,
things as far as the pace of life and how quickly and slowly things move. January and February went by quick,
fast,
and now everything else is at the snail's pace. It's all relative. You're kissing a girl for 10 seconds, it goes by quick. If you got a hot nap, it takes forever to get through that 10 seconds, so it is all relative. And I appreciate what this wake up call. And like you said, some might not wake up and some might go to sleep during this time and get more medicated. But for me, it's a time to get more alert and to get more, in a sense, energized for what's next. And being a parent really makes you realize how time, to spend time with your family. I'm fortunate I had a night job, so I was able to take my kid to school and go to the baseball game and be part of the soccer team and all that. A lot of parents are 9-to-5ers and they didn't have all that. Now they've got this chance to be, in a sense, more social with their own family. And it can be hard and it can be easy and it could be a learning experience, but we're definitely becoming more tribal in a sense. And that tribal, that village, is the reality is that we're all family and we all are facing the same fears and the same reality more than ever. And, my experience traveling has been such a eye-opener. I love getting out of a plane in Tokyo or getting out of a plane. Yeah. And I'm completely open to, I want to taste what they're tasting. I want to smell what they're smelling. I want to be part of them and feel it and then take that back to my own world and create with it. And, now we're going to have to search that out and be a little more intense about how we do it. And, but that worldwide experience is so important for me to be an artist. Like you were saying, one day everyone thought the world was flat. One day there was no Jackson Pollock throwing paint. He was actually using a brush. And then he went, I can't take it. I can't imitate every other painter with a brush. What am I going to do? I'm going to throw the paint. People thought he was crazy. This is not art. This is not real. This is not, where's the art in this? You're just tossing paint and you're throwing it. Now we can't afford a Jackson Pollock on our wall. But there was a time when he was, shunned from the community as an artist.
That's right.
But he had courage. He still, he needed to do that. And I think that's the that's the moment we're coming to, is when everyone's going to be like, up to this point, we had either this urge to imitate or replicate everything that came before us. After this point, we'll be able to be more courageous, more brave in our art and our music, and our thinking process, our thought process is going to have to break from up to 2020. What's after this? And, is it tolerance? Is it
I think that's a part of it. I think they really need to work on tolerance, man. To me, that's the one major downside. If I had to pick something right now about the modern age, some people are so intolerant of people who don't share the same views and all that kind of stuff. And, and the whole time I'm just thinking, I'm like, is it affecting you? If it's not, then what the hell do you care? I mean, come on, man. I hope people really work on tolerance these days. I really do.
Yeah, we have to tolerate. Everybody's got to understand, we're all dirty on the inside and the outside. You can't wash it off, but we're also, we're all sinners and saints.
That's right.
And we have to accept that, and I really appreciate when I'm on stage, closing my eyes and disappearing into the ether, and if you can only live life that way, just let the experience be the guide and not the color or the religion or the lines that are drawn between us. And it's a learning experience to accept somebody. It really opens up your eyes in so many different ways, And as a kid, I wanted to play jazz. I had no one in my life play jazz. I didn't even know anybody that had a saxophone. Everyone had a guitar and a bass. And I loved rock and roll, but my favorite drummers were jazz drummers. So I started to search out rock, man. Yeah, I started to search out rock drummers that were swinging, like Bonham, like Ringo, like Charlie Watts, like Bill Ward from Sabbath. These guys were swinging drummers because they had a love for jazz too, and
you seem like you'd be a big Ginger Baker guy.
Oh, Ginger's my man, because that's where I wanted to that hybrid of Africa and jazz and classical orchestration. If you have a music degree in classical music, can you appreciate blues and rock? Hopefully. Yeah. Because a blues and rock guy can appreciate Rachmaninoff, or if you go back into Bach and Brahms and Mozart and Beethoven.
That was how I was trained, man. I was trained as a classical vocalist. So I mean, I came up listening to Chesnikov, Tchaikovsky, all that kind of stuff, And that's, man. Sometimes, dude, I'll turn that rock and roll off, man, when I need to chill and relax, and the classical music, man, just hits me. Yeah,
absolutely.
You should be able to appreciate that.
Absolutely, and the sense of how to pace a piece of music, how to tell a story. With those instruments they didn't have a guitar and a bass, and possibly, some of that stuff was introduced later, but it really wasn't part of the original orchestra, the symphony, And so I appreciate the hybrid of jazz and rock and African and swing and classical music. And this new, sound that I was able to. You
can tell by listening to you play that those. I mean, you definitely focused world beats with your passion for rock and roll, man. I mean, you like it's so obvious, and I think that's what really makes you a great drummer, dude. I mean, you've got all these different styles. You were never just that guy who just looked at it and said, I'm a rock drummer and I've got one style and there it is. You constantly added new stuff into it.
Yeah, I mean, Phil Rudd from AC/DC is a perfect match for that band. But I didn't want to replicate. I couldn't replicate him. I wasn't from Melbourne back in the '60s. Like I said, from Los Angeles, there's a lot of drum circles and tribal rhythm. Let that seep in. But sometimes at a session, someone will reference a tune or a drummer. And I understand that's a direction and the avenue we want to go down. But my personal experience is to bring my own homegrown from my heart, what would I play? And I'm also very, I'm open to producers and artists and whatever they want me to do. And hopefully they're open to what I want to do, and we can meet somewhere in the middle.
Collaborate, man.
Yeah. But Ginger Baker, when he went out to Africa and made records with Fela Kuti, I was thinking, that's really like Jackson Pollock. That's a moment where you throw everything away that you're known for and you try something new. And you didn't hear any complaints when Ginger Baker was making records with Fela.
You would know this guy's last name, but there's an African drummer that I'm thinking of. I know his first name is Babatunde.
Babatunde Alatunji.
Yeah, man. That's awesome stuff, bro.
And Babatunde is, Mickey Hart from the Grateful Dead brought him out and did Dead shows with him. Yeah. And he had Babatunde banging on drums, the drums of passion with him. And that, to me, I love Mickey, and I know Mickey, and Mickey's one of my, one of the sources for inspiration, because he's like Pollock, like Ginger. There's courage and curiosity, and that's, I guess you put those two together, you have courage and curiosity, you can make change. And that's not easy. Yeah, it's not easy in the music world or the art world, because people want to see and feel like they know what's going to come. And that's why I love Salvador Dali, because his birthday was a few days ago. He was able to paint like Rembrandt. He can replicate a face that looks like a photograph. But he said, how about if I put a rooster coming out of the guy's head? And, you know what I mean? And he made it as real as he could. So it became surreal. And it wasn't just for laughs. It was where his head was. It was curious and courageous. And, I try to eat healthy, breathe healthy, and stay happy. And I think that comes out in my drumming. I'm a happy, bubbly person, and that's what my drumming sounds like. And that's what I love about music and art. You can hear what these people have been through. You can feel Frida Kahlo's pain by looking at her paintings.
Absolutely.
You can feel that, and that's something that a human being gets to share with other people, is their homegrown experience and pain or pleasure, and put it on the page or the canvas or on a magnetic tape in the old days, and let people enjoy that and experience that. Of course, we never got a chance to see Mozart or Beethoven, but it was written.
Yeah.
And we can hear a fantastic pianist play a Rachmaninoff.
They left their mark, man, and for everybody to enjoy later. I mean, that's
and every conductor can do it differently. Beethoven's Fifth can go in 9.5 minutes, but another conductor can do it in 10 minutes because he's feeling different spots where he's slowing, and he's conducting it slower or pulling out. So even we don't know how Beethoven wanted it,
right?
But we can feel it, a personal experience by the pianist that's playing it and the conductor that's conducting it.
And see, that's the advantage that I think human beings will always have. I mean, I remember when I was talking with Scott. Scott's a technologist. Yeah. So Scott starts talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and all that, and how somebody actually has developed a robot that can actually think and all this. Right. And I'm like, man, that's some to me. And I know it's out there, and I'm not trying to sound too Walmart here, but that's some Terminator shit, bro. When you start talking about stuff like that, I'm like, I think Scott told me something about some liquid metal or something. I'm like, oh shit, it's coming. It's coming.
It's Terminator 2, and Terminator 2, really, if you think about it, is an organic AI that has its own 3D printer. It would change and morph into what it is. So once a AI computer has a 3D printer connected to it, it can replace its broken parts. It can live on forever. See, what we were talking about a second ago is the advantage that I think the humans will always have over any technology. I don't believe, maybe they can process certain things, but I don't think that any artificial thing will ever feel like a human being will.
You know,
Yep.
that feeling when you're listening to your favorite song and it gives you the goosebumps, man.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
that's something that I don't think any machine or any robot will ever replicate. You know,
you can.
you just
The
can't.
You know, they can understand the temperature of hot or cold,
Right.
but they don't know what that feels like.
Exactly. When they will never understand after being on a big show and going and laying back in the jacuzzi. They'll never get it. They don't understand when the jets are hitting the back. Man, no way. There's no way I'll ever believe a damn robot will ever feel that.
Yeah, but with the Scott Page angle, if you put a disc in your system and that disc tells your eyeball that it's failing, and then that disc somehow has a 3D printer and it sends the right products to your eyeball so it doesn't fail.
It's incredible.
We can start, repairing ourselves. We shouldn't live forever. One day we have to go, but this is the future of we know very, very rich people can replace parts in their body, and if you don't have the money, you're not going to get a new hip. You're not going to get.
Have you read on CRISPR technology?
Oh, yeah.
That's some crazy stuff, and it's very exciting. You know, I mean, some of it's like, oh, okay, but some of it's really insanely exciting.
Absolutely.
How they can take something an ailment that someone has and use this technology and everything, and then all of a sudden it's gone, it's repaired.
Exactly.
To me, see, I grew up having seizures.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, that, haven't had one in a very long time, but to me, the thought that someone, because I know there are children out there right now that can't go an entire day, some of them without having 10 or 20 seizures in a day. Wow. And it's insane, to think that, but it's very exciting to think that there's a technology out there that could help those kids and things like that.
Absolutely.
To me, that's the aspect of it that human beings need to really focus on and do. And that's when I say, don't shame people for going further and asking questions. That person could save thousands of lives one day just because they asked a question. There's
the painter was threatened by the camera, the photograph.
Yeah.
I mean, there goes my whole art. Now you can take a picture of this person. I'm not going to have to paint it. But also what the photograph did was also in the technology and the medicine and just the revolution of how to capture something and examine it and microscope it and learn from that. And now we can take a picture of something and examine it and figure out what to do to fix the problem, and so the painter came back. He wasn't, there's still,
didn't go away.
It didn't, you just had to live together,
That's what it's all about. I think the old stuff and the new stuff can find a way to live jointly. I mean, I've always believed that, even though, things like vinyl from the music industry, yeah, okay, it's dated. But then again, people love nostalgia. They love it. Dude, I've got a whole collection of X-Men action figures from when I was a kid because it reminds me of those days when I was growing up, man, and some of that stuff is awesome. There's always going to be a place for people because memories, especially good memories, are what people go back to a lot of the time. So I don't see where certain things that we enjoy today can't live in the future also,
Well, yeah, back to tolerance.
Right.
Back to not tolerance of religion or color. I had to have tolerance for the drum machine and find a way to love. I couldn't think it's all about me. I had to say, look, the drum machine ain't going anywhere.
And Prince took that drum machine and said, and
a singer-songwriter didn't need a drummer in the room anymore. He can just play the and start writing a song without me there.
Oh boy, I can't do that, man. That just drives me nuts.
But I had to have tolerance and then find a way to live together with the drum machine and live together. And like I said, maybe find a band that was sounding a new wave, like the Cars or Missing Persons that had a real drummer, or go for the Human League or New Order and figure out
how Fears, man.
Yeah, how it works together.
Absolutely.
So
I think that's some of the best stuff.
That tolerance for music and art, and for Jackson Pollock to understand that we all fit together and there's nobody that doesn't belong in the room, and the pool of great music and art, it might be a little shallow, or it could be a very deep pool. You know, who knows how many people can swim in that? Because we all have different opinions of what's good and bad. And, you know, Black Sabbath, like the shirt you're wearing.
Love them.
Somebody doesn't understand that they grew up in Birmingham and the streets were destroyed in WW2. They still weren't fixed in the 60s. They were still living in rubble. And that's why do you think that's why the music sounds that way? Now, in America, rock and roll was rocking around the clock and having a good time. It wasn't until Vietnam that the music in America went dark. We had our own issues with the Doors and Jefferson Airplane and Jimi Hendrix. You can hear what Vietnam did to the music. And they didn't have that wake-up call through the 40s in America. You know, of course, we had Pearl Harbor, but that didn't really touch the mainland. You know, it was the real pain. It was the real pain of losing people to the draft and your best friend going to war and not coming back. That affected the music and art in America. But that's what Black Sabbath and those bands, they were living on that earlier than America. They had that from WW2. Their streets were destroyed. The musicians played that way. And then that's why Cream sounds like Cream, you know?
I'm convinced I was born in the wrong decade. You know, I'm totally convinced of it. In 1989, I was 6 years old. You know, if I swear, if I would have been born in like 58, maybe 60, right in that area, and I could have been hitting the late teens, early 20s, when that 70s, because that's my stuff, man. I love the 70s and 80s stuff, man. That's great stuff to me. Mm-hmm. Like I'm a big, you know, Styx fan and REO Speedwagon, that kind of stuff. I love Pink Floyd. I love Toto, that kind of stuff, you know, and going into the 90s, you know, which will transition into this here, because obviously we're talking to Stephen Perkins, you know, but I was a big Jane's Addiction fan. And, you know, the whole grunge movement and everything hitting, you know, the way it did. I loved Alice in Chains. You know, and I remember too, man, it was, you know, when I was in school, because growing up in Southeast Georgia, sorry, dude, but, you know, rock and roll as a career is not exactly accepted. It never has been. You're expected to get a 9-to-5 shift working job.
Absolutely.
You should be married by the time you're 24. You know, that sort of thing is the way it's looked at around here. I remember we had career day when I was in school. And they asked me where I wanted to, you know, because you had a choice to go and you had what they call it, like a mentor or something for a day.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my mentor that I chose was the guy who taught me was teaching me how to play guitar. They would not let me go hang with him for that day because it wasn't considered a real career.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, but that's what I want to do. And they were like, yeah, but you know, we're talking like, you know, a job at a restaurant or a job over here at the paper mill or out at the port or something. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. Let the 9.9. Yeah.
I mean, I knew from a young age, and this is where you know, I know we don't have a whole lot of time left because you told me you only had a certain amount of time, but this is where I want to kind of transition because we do got to talk a little bit about, you know, you as a performer and your life in music. I know you started out at a young age as well playing drums, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like the day after your bar mitzvah, you went and bought a drum kit. Is that what I understood?
Correct, man. I played the pillows and the pads for years. My parents didn't buy me anything to really experience the instrument.
Yeah.
You know? Sticks, and that was my instrument. It wasn't the drum I was hitting, it was what I had in my hands. And that was actually good for me. It gave me the passion of what it feels like to hold a piece of wood and hit things. And is it a pillow, is it a pot, or is it a snare drum? It didn't matter at that time.
Didn't matter. Yeah.
It didn't. But you know, quickly back to the 90s, what I loved about what Jane's Addiction did, we inspired people to say, anything's possible in the music business if we can fucking make it. I mean,
dude, don't say that. You guys were incredible, man. I mean,
yeah, no, there was the 80s. The 80s were full of this replica sound, and the sound was over and over. And you know, to me, the Bon Jovis or the Poisons or all the hair metal,
It had its day.
And all the new wave, it was starting to sound the same. Nothing was new.
But brother, when I was a kid and I heard "Been Caught Stealing," holy shit!
It was a hybrid of jazz and funk and some really, poignant, funny lyrics. And what Jane's did was also, before Jane's, there were some great drummers. But what I love about after Jane's is you had the Pumpkins. Yeah. You had Primus. You had drummers coming out that were just, maybe I didn't have anything to do with it, but I loved what was happening in the world of music on the drum side after Jane's Addiction.
I'm sure you did have something to do with that. I mean, look, dude, there's no way you were in the position you were in, and you didn't influence people. There's just, come on, impossible.
But it was great to hear every drummer had a personality again, because in the 80s, all the drummers kind of sounded the same. And now you got the guy from Primus. the guy from Primus didn't sound like the guy from the Pumpkins.
No.
But it was, my parents were supportive because they gave me drum lessons. They paid for lessons, but they also made me earn the drum set, the instrument.
Were you in band at school?
I was in the marching band. So that was a couple of different moments in my life where I had to grow. With the pillows, I got to a certain point. When I got the drum set, I had to relearn the instrument because now I had something that was musical, not a pillow.
Right.
And then that changed my direction of what I was going to do with these sticks. Now I had something musical to do. And then all of a sudden, I was in the marching band, and I thought I was a good drummer, and there was 10 other guys that did the same thing.
Yeah.
And I wasn't so good. I was just as good as them, or they were as good as me. So that the competition, that competitive spirit, was something else I added for my direction.
Drives it.
Exactly. And then I'm searching for a new partner, and I found Dave Navarro and someone else who was gliding on the guitar like no one else I knew before that. Everybody else was playing a AC/DC tune and just barely holding on. He was blowing out Van Halen and Randy Rhoads and Genesis and Yes, and it was just natural to him. So there was another, besides that moment I got a drum set, and then I was in the marching band and got competitive. Then I've got a partner, and then I got someone to play with. And all these things changed my directions. And then I found Perry and Eric, and they were brave and older than me and listened to different types of music, and they had different friends than I did. And
now, about how old were you when you started working with the guys from Jane's Addiction?
I was just 17, almost 18 when I met Perry. He was 25. The bass player was 22. So, like I said, they didn't have the same record collection, and they were into something that I wasn't, and they brought me into this world, the more storytelling, more, mature choices on instrument, less flash, less fireworks. But you couldn't stop me and Dave from throwing those in. No. But if you listen to bass parts, the bass parts are very repetitive, and there's a story. But me and Dave were throwing fireworks everywhere during that bass part. And then, Perry had lyrics that weren't about girls and cars. He was talking about God. He was talking about, what's after death. He was talking about how to live life on earth and things that were kind of new to me as far as how to mesh rock and roll with great lyrics. And that was the emotional part of Jane's Addiction. So, at 17, 18, the strip in LA was coming to an end, 1985, 86. You really didn't have any much gas left in it, even though there were some great musicians. Tommy Lee, was one of my favorites, and I got to watch him play many, many, many times when I was a teenager before Motley Crue was rich and famous. They were badass. I never had a chance to see Kiss at a young age, but I got to see Motley, And then there was something that they wanted to light the stage on fire. And I thought, that's not only you're playing your instrument, you're giving us something to smell and touch, and,
sure.
And something there. So, but the average musician gets to play with other average musicians. You got to search out great players. A tennis player that's fantastic, you has to find another tennis player that's fantastic, or he ain't going to have a rally.
That's right.
You got to be surrounded by other cats that are better than you, or hopefully on the same page, and then you can have this conversation, this tug of war. And so that was also another moment where I realized that my direction can change if I reach for musicians that are better than me and try to find people that really grew up on different music and are striving for something different than I am, and then hybrid that, you know. And that's where I met Mike Watt, the great bass player from the Minutemen and Firehose. He was self-taught, but he taught himself how to be a better player over and over, you know. And a lot of people don't realize if you fail to prepare to fail.
That's right. You know? And fail fast, as Scott says.
Yeah, you gotta, you know, get into yourself and dedicate time to what you love. And it's easy when you love it because it doesn't seem like you're wasting time. You know, you're actually using the time wisely to get better at this instrument. And so these moments in my life, getting a drum set, meeting other musicians, having that competitive spirit, and the drum world is athletic and competitive in nature. You know, I might not like the guy's band, but I love what he does on the drum set. You know, and because we're athletes. And wow, I can't believe what he's doing with his hands and his feet. This is incredible.
Dude, you know? I've watched so many drummers after gigs, and you guys just, some drummers just look like they have just ran marathons, man. I mean, it's like they are just completely worn out after a gig. And to me, you know, that's a testament to how much, you know, stamina, ability, all that kind of stuff. You know, I'm a frontman vocalist, but I tell you what, you know, I've never seen people in bands work as hard as drummers. Number one, they usually have more equipment to set up. And number two, I mean, after they get all that stuff set up, they are just, you know, thrashing all over the place, man. The arms are going 90-0, you know, the head's banging, everything's going, you know, and the energy, man. I mean, if I don't know, you would know, but I mean, if I was a drummer, I know what I'd be doing after the gig. I'd be hitting a restaurant or something. I'd be eating something immediately to just build up the energy again, because I know I would be completely drained. You know?
Well, I know that the punk rock musician, there's a strict discipline, and if you're not about to pass out after the show, you didn't do your job.
You didn't do it right?
Something went wrong.
Well, tell me this, okay? You know, because the whole purpose of my podcast also, not only to give people an insight of the you know, mind of, you know, each person that's on, but also is to give advice to up and coming performers, you know, because what I brought on not only performers on this podcast, I've also had, you know, CEOs of major companies, I've had attorneys, CPAs, you know, entrepreneurs, different things like that. This upcoming Monday, the episode that'll be released is featuring Brian Ottens, who is the CEO and president of Peter E. Schmidt, which is the largest music rep company in the country. So I want people to have that behind the scenes look, and I want them to understand that the music industry is not only about players. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
But you know, and most people in the public do not understand that, and so many musicians don't actually understand that, you know, which I'm so convinced that most performers don't get any further than they want to get because they don't understand the business aspect of this industry. And I've always said that I think performing is a small portion of it compared to the actual business of it.
Well, I was in 1986 somewhat spoiled because we got a record deal, and the record label said, we'll put you on every bus stop, we'll put you in every record store.
A lot of people wish they were that spoiled.
Yeah, we'll introduce you to agents and managers. It's your choice. All you got to do is go practice and write songs. Nowadays, you got to do all those things yourself. You got to do the promotion. You got to get the word out. You need your own. You got to publicize. I had a team behind us, and so I was lucky, but also I got to learn how they did it.
Sure.
And I learned the right. You know, you do have to have people in the marketing. You do have to have people talking to radio. You do have to have managers that know how to talk to agents, that talk to promoters. You know, but it's definitely, the line has changed. You got to do it yourself or be part of that conversation. But I was able to learn a lot, and also, you know, the chance to be original as Jane's Addiction, and Warner Brothers was great for us because they said, we're not going to tell you what to do on your album cover. We're not going to tell you what to do on your stage. We want you to do you, and we're going to tell the world, hey,
that's awesome.
Look what we found, you know?
They try to control so much of it these days with so many of these artists, that the fact that, you know, that you went through that time period where they would just kind of give you the free reins of it is just
absolutely
amazing.
Now
it's great.
They had a label under their umbrella called Sire, and at first Sire would have been a better fit, which was the Ramones, Pretenders, the Replacements, REM. But that marketing team and that radio team probably knew what to do with Jane's Addiction. But we wanted to be on Warner Brothers, and they had the Doobie Brothers and Van Morrison and bands that really didn't fit in Jane's Addiction's category. So even Warner Brothers had to kind of think more how to promote, how to work, how to get this band off the ground, because Sire had the team that was kind of fit for alternative music, like REM. You know,
sure.
So there was a chance for Warner's to grow up a little with us. We all grew up together, which was, who knew looking back that was going to happen? But they were actually.
Do you think that still happens today?
Well, your advice. You said, "What's the advice?" I think I learned this young when I read the review that said we were great, and then I read a review that says we're shit. I can't believe either. I got to believe in myself.
That's right.
Because if you believe the review, if you believe what people tell you, you're not getting the full truth. You're getting an opinion.
Yeah.
And you don't want everybody to give you the thumbs up or I like what you did. And I feel bad for people online that are always looking for likes and love. You cannot be loved by everybody. You don't want to be, man.
No way.
Jackson Pollock. Let's go back to Pollock. He wasn't loved. People thought he was crazy. He stinks. You know, and not everybody likes coffee ice cream. Some people like vanilla. Some people like chocolate. But it's all ice cream, man. You know, I mean.
Chocolate got myself, but that's okay. That's all right.
You know, so that's, that belief in yourself and obviously critique and opinion, and then from someone you care about, you want to hear their thoughts, and you look at what they're into. You wonder if you're, if you're approved, approval rating. But then again, you cannot wait for that, and you cannot build off that.
No.
It does give you confidence to be loved. It gives you confidence to sell tickets and have a full room, But the big joke was back in the day, do you want to sell records? Well, I don't want to work at a record store. I want to sell music, man.
Right.
I want to not even sell it. I just want to give it away, but I got to live. But yeah, I don't want to be at a record store selling music. I want to be on a stage selling music. And there's a difference, And so there's the music business, You got to believe that what you're doing is right. And of course, music is streamed now for free. People aren't buying records, maybe the vinyl collectors, of course. But yeah, everything is free out there. And the concerts, the Metallicas and Chili Peppers and Foo Fighters that played at 25,000 people, that concert's going to be very difficult to recreate now because of this damn virus. A smaller show that has 50 people fitting in a 500-seater is possible. But that's not going to work for the big band. They can't do 50 shows in a row at a 500-seater. So we're all going to have to rethink how to get the music out there to the masses, how to get the masses together to enjoy it. Because I love the mosh pit. We're all jumping up together. Elbow
I've been hurt in a few mosh pits.
Yeah, I mean, there's the slam pit, the mosh pit, but it feels good, and you want to be part of it. It's like a flock of birds or a school of fish. We're together, moving together, and it feels good.
Sure.
And Jerry Garcia said it when he flew over Woodstock. Usually, you get that amount. The only time you're going to see that many people together is on a battlefield. And look at Woodstock. Look at Woodstock. It's a love field.
The first one. The first one.
Exactly. And it's
We'll leave the '90s Woodstocks out of this, but
but all the different festivals that have that blueprint that you can get thousands of people together, not for a battle, but for music, for art, for love.
Dude,
for food.
Hey, look at one that you were tied with, Lollapalooza.
Absolutely.
The great turnouts, man, for all those Lollapaloozas.
And the original one had Henry Rollins, Butthole Surfers, Susie and the Banshees, Nine Inch Nails, and Jane's Addiction, Living Color, Body Count with Ice-T. these bands don't belong together in your record collection.
Right.
They don't belong together.
Wasn't Jane's Addiction like that was like Lollapalooza was started with what was it? I can't remember exactly. Wasn't that like the farewell or something? Or was supposed to be? Or...
We were picking up that year. We were done. Now that's the thing with Jane's Addiction. If we had a really great manager, he would have said, "Take a break."
Right.
We had a good manager that said, "You strike while it's hot. You don't stop." And the good and great, they both worked. But the good manager didn't give us the advice to say, "Take a break. You got a career for years." A great manager would have said, "I get it. You've been together for 6 years every day. Take a break. We're not going to lose momentum." Yeah. Maybe the momentum will move, but it won't stop, And so, but Lollapalooza was a team of musicians and freaks traveling the country.
That's why it worked.
And it was unity, and there was love, and to watch Vodka play and play Cop Killer. And to see Living Color, play Cult of a Personality, there wasn't much. There were the lines. We were all in different camps, but we all slept in the same tent.
Sure. Well, tell me this, brother. I mean, because like I said, I know time's ticking down here, but so we got the business advice from you. So for young drummers or up and coming drummers that are watching this right now. And they're big Stephen Perkins fans,
or not,
regardless. Yeah. But regardless, you can't really question the success. So, what would you say a typical Stephen Perkins practice session would be like?
Okay, well, that's a good question. I try not to get into the same routine behind the drum set for practicing because sometimes I run out of gas that way. So one day, I might just practice the rudiments, the stuff I learned as a kid. Right, left, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. It's boring, but it works. Sometimes I'll put on something like you said, a Van Halen record or something from the 70s or the 80s, something that makes me feel like a kid again. Yeah. Put on the headphones and play along. Sometimes I'll pick out an African record like Babatunde Olatunji and think, I'm not from Africa. I'm not going to experience what he did and why these rhythms are coming out of him. Let me try to absorb these new rhythms. Let me listen to a record from India with tabla, and let me try to imitate that. Let these new things that maybe I don't like, maybe try to put on a hip-hop record or a rap record that you're not interested in. Play along to it. That's going to change your drumming.
For sure.
So I sometimes force feed myself and make myself practice to something that I don't enjoy. Sometimes I'll just trip out and grab the mallets and just try to make musical imagery, rolls and orchestration and experience the sound of a drum, not just practice how fast or slow I can go or how steady the beat is. Try to figure out all the different sounds a drum gets. How many different ways I can hit a cymbal. So it's really practicing. It's more about playing. It's like a basketball player when he practices is a lot different than when he's playing the game. When you're playing the game, you're going for it every moment. When you're practicing, you're having fun, you're trying shots. So practice is kind of just a masturbation.
Right, you're figuring it out. You're figuring out what works for you.
It's really about playing the instrument, playing the game, being in the moment. When you play music, you're not trying to get to the end of the song. You're trying to be in the moment.
That's right.
So that's really my practice schedule is look at the rudiments, listen to music, put on a record I don't like, put on a record I do like, try to replicate my favorites, try to imagine I'm in Aerosmith and the guys lost their drummer, and so I'm the new guy, and make Steven Tyler shake his ass without realizing there's a different drummer there, right? And also don't be afraid to suck. Don't be afraid to drop the ball. Don't be afraid to not be able to pull it off, because those are the moments that help you grow.
Sure, not everybody does the first time.
I know what my weakness is, and I got to work on it. I know what my strength is, and I got to keep that strong. But I don't need to think that the only thing I can do is work on my strengths. No, man, realize your weaknesses and bring those to the table and try to get those strong. And of course, it's frustrating when you can't do something, no matter what it is. If it's on the instrument, or you can't get a hold of your friend, you want to talk to somebody and there's a wall between you, or you're talking at the same time because no one's listening. You have to take a breath, and that's kind of like the tennis player is rallying. The conversation is someone talking and someone else listening, and then they talk. That's how it is with music. You got to listen. You got to speak. That's how it is with my own body. Listen to what it needs and doesn't need, and speak to it.
Sure.
There's the great moment when I'm playing and I open my eyes and I'm in my drum room alone. I think if I was on stage, I'd be taking people to the next level. But I'm not. I'm alone. Maybe my best playing is going to be a solo alone where no one even hears it or sees it. That's okay if you can't do it on stage. Your best show was actually alone, not on stage. My best moment on stage might not be my best drumming. It might be because we're having a good time or we're reaching people, and that's okay. It's like you don't always have to show off or be technical. You want to be there to make people move and feel something. And when I'm playing and it's a big, big place and people are enjoying it for 100 yards away, and there's people at the food stand and people in the bungee jumpers and people, walking around, they're not paying attention to the band. They can still hear you.
That's right. It's affecting them whether they realize it or not.
Exactly, man.
Oh, yeah,
you play
100%.
a small place, it's kind of like this conversation. When you play a small place, we're completely connected. But if I was in a room with a bunch of people, I'd be distracted even though we're still talking. When you play a very big place, you have distractions. The bungee jumper, the person on the side of the stage going, "Oh, dude, it's for the tickets, man. We got our passes." All those things distract you, but it doesn't take away from the show. It changes it.
Right.
And so I try to, as a practicing and playing musician, I try to take everything into consideration. And don't forget the love I have of holding a stick and playing something, and that feels awesome. Good. And no one's here except for you and me. But when you replay this performance, someone else will hear that, and it just makes them feel good, or makes them realize, yeah, why not play some more? Why not get on my drumsticks and play a pillow? Because I've got neighbors and I live in an apartment. I don't have a drum set. Play your pillow, man, because it's still the same thing. It's you connecting with these sticks, and you are the instrument. That's what I learned before my bar mitzvah. When I got the drum set, I had an instrument in my room. But before that, I was truly the only instrument, and I still am. I guess that's the advice. You are the instrument. Your tool might be the guitar, the stick, or the piano, but it's basically what's up here. And it should be a personal experience. And I try to personalize my practice routine, make it mine. I know what other guys do, and I try that, but maybe that doesn't get me turned on every day. Right.
You have to do what works for you.
I have to do it, man. I got to make sure it turns me on and keeps me going, because if it's a bore, then something's wrong, because it shouldn't be. And I got to count my blessings. I never had a real job. I got to get – I played –
The closest thing I had to a real job was I was a delivery manager for pianos, and I was still involved in music.
Exactly.
I mean, it's always been music, man. I swear to God, dude, if something ever happens to me one day, I'm going to be totally screwed. That's all I know is music.
And then kind of back to the conversation of being spoiled with Warner Brothers and having a label do it for me or show me how it's done.
It still took hard work, regardless of whether you call it spoiled or not. It took some serious work.
Oh, God, dedication and vision.
Absolutely.
But now I also had that experience in the studio where I was always in the drum room and I'd have a professional in the control room. Now, with this damn virus, you got to do it all yourself. You got to know how to use the recording equipment and play the instrument. and you great engineers can be great musicians. The great musicians can be great engineers. You know, I don't have someone in the other room recording me. I'm here alone.
I tell you, Stephen, I told somebody the other day, I was like, you know, one thing this virus is doing, and, you know, and I'll say this because I don't believe every performer is good. Sorry, I just don't. And I think anybody who thinks that's a reality is crazy, because not everybody who wants to be something is something. You know, so this thing right here has really pointed out who's got it and who don't. Because I've seen some stuff that it's like, ooh, Lord, no, I would have never put that out. If I would have heard that, and I won't even mention names because I'm sure you've heard some stuff too, but I tell you what, there was one that was a cover of someone in the 90s, and I'll leave it at that. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, there is no way in hell I would have ever let that get put out with my name on it. And it's not just that. There's a lot of stuff that I've heard. But then again, I've also heard some performers that got out there and that, you know, because it's the same thing in acting. They always say that the camera picks it up. The camera knows. And they'll tell theater actors to dial it back. If you're on a camera, dial it way back, because that camera picks up every little thing. Same thing with music. And I've seen some performers that have gotten on the camera, and I'm like, wow, that was awesome. And then I've seen some of them that it's like, it's almost like it's highlighting the flaws. And
yeah, absolutely.
And I'm like, ooh, man, bro. I mean, that's a way. That's some advice I would give to some people. You know, if you want to know if you're doing something wrong or right, go watch yourself on a video. And if you have any ear whatsoever, you'll hear it if you suck.
I play very differently in the studio than I do on stage.
For sure.
Not a choice, but it's an impression I get. What's needed for the moment.
Yeah.
And I've got to be ultra alert what's needed. And that's a drummer's job, is not to take people too far out because you want them to move and tap their feet. But you do want to make them think.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to just make them not have to you got to challenge people to have some growth.
That's the way I do that. To me, that's a great motto in life, man, is always look for that challenge. I heard, and sometimes, you know what, some people might not like what you do, you know, but I heard a quote one time that said, in order to think, you have to risk being offensive.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is brilliant.
Yeah.
That's exactly true. 100%.
That's why I can always go back to Jackson Pollock, because there was a day before he threw the paint, he was using a brush.
For sure.
And he decided to put it down and change the direction and be honest to what he needed to do. He didn't know if he was going to be, he probably knew he was going to be hated.
Oh, I think I lost you. Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, he probably knew that people weren't going to like it or call it a joke, but he had to stick to his guns.
Yeah.
And I think sticking to your guns is, you know, obviously tolerance, but sticking to your guns, you know, you have to marry those two things.
Well, I tell you what, dude, well, we're going to wrap it up. But before we do, I mean, and I'll get to this in a second, but you're obviously right there behind your drum kit.
Yeah.
But tell me this, I'm going to tell you this, excuse me. You know, I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. And you and I couldn't make it work at NAMM. We tried, you know, we were going to try to make this interview work at NAMM, and it just didn't. And now that we've had this talk, I'm really thankful that we did not make it work at NAMM, because I think you were the absolute perfect guest to have on, following all of that stuff, looking at it currently now. I mean, you've really given a lot of insight. Go ahead.
And now you were in a glass booth.
Oh man, dude, I got to be honest with you, bro.
You actually knew what was coming. You were in that.
Yeah, dude. Let me tell you what, that stuff you were doing, I'll never forget. I was talking with Scott, and for the listeners out there, if you don't know Scott Page, he played saxophone for Supertramp, Pink Floyd, and Toto. In my opinion, that's like the holy trinity of bands right there. You know, which I could think of bands also that I love as well as them. But to me, I love those groups. But Stephen walks up to the booth, and acts like he doesn't do it, but he acts like he's about to drop his pants and moon both of us. And Scott and I were just laughing our asses off, and we had trouble getting through the interview. And at one point,
well, you had a great seat because you can concentrate on who you're talking to, but then again, all the crap that was happening around you constantly at NAMM, it's thousands of people walking by, and
it was hard to concentrate. I'm not going to lie. Dude, I was right across from the Sabian cymbals, man, for God's sakes. I mean, every 2 seconds, that's all you heard. I was like, oh, my God. But that booth actually made it work, as well as it could. And we had a lot of guests on. I mean, Jonathan Mover. We had a lot of great performers in there and a lot of great guests. And Mover was on he was my last guest. So, but I'm really glad, as sad as I was during that weekend, that I couldn't wind up meeting up with Stephen Perkins. Even though you and I did hang out several times during that week, we weren't able to make the interview happen because of scheduling conflicts and things like that. But I'm so thankful now that it didn't work out, because, I think this interview can be an inspiration to some people who are, because I know there's some people right now that are down and they're not processing some of this very well. And there's a lot of performers that are looking at it the same way, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What's the next step? And dude, you've really brightened that up a good bit during this interview. And while this right here I wasn't going to put this episode out just yet, because the ones that I'm releasing now, I've called the NAMM sessions, and this next season is going to be called the Solitary Sessions.
Yeah, great.
So I'm thinking, though, that your episode I'm going to release a little earlier, because I think this is something that people need to hear. And so,
I appreciate that. I'm a positive guy. I'm a happy guy, and even when sound check's taking forever, I know it's going to be a better show because of it.
For sure. Oh, absolutely.
That's what we're doing now, that sound check of life,
Well, you got to do me a favor, man. You're behind that kit.
Absolutely.
Play me a few measures of oh Lord, of the been caught stealing.
Look at this kit. Plus, I have a couple gongs around because I like to get gongy.
Dude, that is insane. I can't believe that. That's like a Neil Peart kit, man.
Absolutely. Now, the caught stealing beat was a marriage with the bass part.
Yeah.
And the bass part and the drum part is kind of like an M.C. Escher painting, when you see the white duck and the black duck, and they go right off the page. It's a pattern. It doesn't stop. It doesn't start. It just is.
Hum a little bit of that bass part for them, so they know.
Now, the part itself reminds me of an egg shape rolling down a hill. It gets to the bottom, but it's got a hump. Just like a ball would get there, but a ball just goes straight down. This beat's got that little hump.
I think Zoom puts like a small like a gate or something on this, because it's picking up your drums, but it'll go like quieter or something. Maybe the phone's got to be a little further away. I don't know.
Well, listen to this. Now,
love it.
That to me is what I do. I hit something and I make someone else have a laugh. That's it. That's what I do.
Dude, you've made my day, bro. Seriously. And hey, I can't wait till I can make it back out there to LA. Again, you guys out there, part of my West Coast family, man. I know we haven't known each other for too long, but we, once you're in that group with me, man, that's just the way I view you. And I think you're a great guy. You're one of the utmost professional guys that I know. And again, I really greatly appreciate this interview. This like I said, it was going to kick off the second season of the Sitting In with Thomas Claxton podcast, but I think I'm going to put this one out a little bit earlier, because I really do think that some people need to hear what you're saying, and uplift the spirits a little bit and let people know in the end it's going to be okay, brother. So I can't thank you enough, man.
Thomas, it was a pleasure. And right now we're in, like I was saying, this is the sound check where everything feels like hell, but we're going to have a great show afterwards. This little 75 days or 130 days, whatever it is we're going through, is the long sound check. And then we get to go on stage. It'll sound fucking great.